Alright, hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to discuss whether or not luxury watch straps are worth it, and I also want to do a comparison between watch straps at various price points. Now, maybe you're someone who just bought a new watch, or maybe you're someone who has had a watch for a very long time and wants to kind of spice things up. And of course, the natural first step in doing that is buying a new watch strap. And when you start your search online, you are inundated with lots of choices, many of which claim to be luxury or higher end. And maybe it's worth buying that higher end strap. I mean, after all, you spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on this watch. So why not match it properly with a higher end strap? That is really the central discussion of today's video. But before I get into things, I want to really discuss what makes a strap a quote-unquote luxury watch strap. Now, there is no universal definition of what makes a watch strap considered to be luxury or higher end. However, I would say personally, my definition is a strap that is over $100 and many times has full grain leather. Without diving too deep, for those who are unfamiliar, there are a couple main distinctions of leather that you'll find in a watch strap. There's genuine leather, which sounds good on paper, but is really the lowest grade of leather you can buy. There's top grain, that's sort of in the middle. And then at the top, there's full grain leather. That is considered the premium version of leather on a strap. Of course, there are other types of straps out there that are not leather, but generally speaking, you're not going to have to pay over $100 for anything that's like a NATO strap or an elastic loop type of strap. Really just anything that kind of isn't leather for the most part should be relatively affordable. All right, so now that we have established the rules here, let's talk about whether or not these straps are actually worth it. Now, I'll start this discussion by saying I personally think you get what you pay for. If you're someone who's looking for a watch strap for their new watch and you're looking in the sort of under $50 price point, you're going to get something that is more than likely using genuine leather, which again, as discussed, is the lowest form of leather that you can have that is considered real leather, I suppose, on a strap. And although it may look good right away, which is certainly indisputable, I think a lot of times these straps can look as good on day one as any strap. Over time, you may see some issues with longevity. I mean, I can't even begin to think about how many times I've purchased a watch strap in the more affordable price range, and more times than not, those straps do not hold up over time. Again, they can look just as good as any strap on day one, but to me personally, they just over time don't hold up as well as those higher end straps that are using those higher grains of leather. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this rule, and there are a lot of different brands and places to buy straps that I think offer some really good value for money. I, for one, am a big fan of buying watch straps on Etsy. I'll leave my favorite seller down below. But, there are some nice handmade, handcrafted straps that I think, despite them not really sharing too much about the quality of the leather, they don't have any sort of distinction of whether it's genuine or full grain or top grain leather. They do a pretty nice job and I think stand up pretty well over time. Now, that is really just my overall philosophy when it comes to buying watch bands, but I think it's important to really look at these bands and actually judge them side by side. So with that being said, I do want to flip the camera and show off some different bands from different price tiers and really discuss how they've held up and what my real opinion is on them. All right, so I flipped the camera here and I want to do that true comparison between each of these straps so we could ultimately decide whether or not a luxury strap is worth it. So we'll start with the lowest price and we'll go all the way up to the highest. I'll mention where I got this strap and roughly what I paid. I'll go ahead and start with this strap here on the right. This is the cheapest of the straps. This is a Handdn Roma, which you can see here, leather strap, obviously in this very striking red color. You may know Handdn Roma if you've searched at all on Amazon or just in general on the internet for more affordable straps. It's a very popular name. I certainly purchased a lot of Handdn Roma straps back in the day when I first started collecting. I think it's a really good way, honestly, to just try different styles and try different colors on your watches. Really can't recommend enough kind of experimenting with what you like. But as far as this particular strap goes, not the highest quality. As you can see here, this is considered to be genuine leather, which, as I mentioned, is the lowest grade of leather you can buy for a strap. And, despite not wearing this strap an absolute ton, just because it's a very striking color, like I said, I can say for certain this feels very, very flimsy. It just really doesn't feel like it's super high quality. I honestly don't think you have too many wears in this strap compared to others. This will probably break down very, very quickly. It's hard to describe, but yeah, I think we all know what a cheap strap kind of feels like, and this is it. It just doesn't feel very strong. It doesn't feel nice in the hand. Again, if you want a certain look for a cheap price, it's a great option, but this to me is just not worth getting. I think you can get a lot more value if you spend just a little bit more money. Next up here is this Epsom leather strap I bought off of eBay many years ago for about $35. And as you can see here, this is also genuine leather. It feels very similar to the Handdn Roma in the sense that it is not very high quality, doesn't feel good in the hand, and I really do doubt the longevity of a band like this. Again, certainly a nice look. I think it could look great in photos and great on wrist, but after a couple of months of wearing something like this, I just don't think it's really going to stand the test of time. I think I personally made a huge mistake buying this for over 30 bucks back in the day because, again, this is the lowest form of leather you can get. So I think if you're buying genuine leather, that's fine. Again, it can look good, but I wouldn't pay more than 30 bucks for one. Next up, this is a shell cordovan leather strap that I purchased from Etsy for about $55. I'll leave the seller in the description below. And I gotta say, this to me is really where I think you're getting some pretty good value in a watch strap. Obviously, the different materials play a role here, and shell cordovan in particular is a harder leather. So I think that's obviously going to end up making this band last longer. I've worn this strap significantly more than the others here, and I don't think it looks half bad. Of course, there is a bit of a divot for where I put the tang of the buckle here, but overall, this thing looks good. It honestly doesn't show a whole lot of wear. You're also getting a quick release spring bar. That is obviously something that is just amazing to have. Should be really standard in every watch strap these days. I would avoid any strap without it. And again, for 55 bucks, I think it's pretty solid. I will say though, when you buy off of sellers on Etsy or these sort of vague places that sell leather goods, you may not know what type of leather you're getting. I look back at the listing for this strap and there was no indication that this was genuine or top grain or full grain leather. I think it feels pretty decent, but to be honest, again, there's no real indication about what this is. So I think again, this $55, $60 price point, I think this is where you can start to get some pretty good value. I don't think you need to really necessarily spend the full load of over $100, $150 on the strap, but keep in mind, again, you may have some vagueness in where it's coming from and, kind of what the overall quality really feels like. All right, so last up here for that luxury price point, I actually have a couple examples to show you. First up here is an Omega factory leather strap that came on my Omega Seamaster 1948. And this, from my understanding, is a full grain leather and you can really feel it. I've worn the strap quite a bit, so of course it's gonna look pretty worn down, but it just feels so much nicer than anything on the table here. It feels like it truly has some heft and really feels like it has some decent durability as well. I know really describing all of this maybe doesn't do the best justice towards each of these different straps. You're probably gonna have to take my word for it, but to me, buying a full grain strap, a higher quality, higher grain leather really goes a long way. And really more than kind of the longevity, it really is important, in my opinion, to have something on your wrist that feels as high quality as the watch you're wearing. This came on like a $5,000 to $6,000 Omega, and it feels like it fits. It really feels like it's at home, and you feel like your experience is still luxury and really nice. When you wear something like this Handdn Roma strap, it's gonna take a $5,000 watch and, in my opinion, really make it feel like you're wearing any random $20 watch. Not that there's anything wrong with wearing more affordable pieces. I think for those who watch the channel know I'm a huge fan of any type of watch. But, again, if you're gonna pay thousands of dollars, you probably want that experience to be, a complete luxury experience. I'll also bring this example into the fold here. This is from Delugs. This actually is on a really cool spring-loaded deployant. Love these. These help the longevity of your straps significantly. And I do think Delugs makes a really nice one. This sort of, again, spring-loaded mechanism, much nicer than what you're gonna find on those sort of random generic ones on eBay or on Amazon. This is a more thin leather strap here. Definitely not as strong as like a shell cordovan type of leather, but it feels really nice as well. And, to me, I put this on my vintage Omega DeVille, which is actually my great-grandfather's watch, my first ever watch. I wanted to kind of elevate the watch, make it feel much nicer, and kind of, again, make it feel like a luxury experience. And this did that for me, truly. It feels nice. So I'm not here to endorse Delugs in particular. This is not sponsored, but I will say if you're going to spend over $100, sometimes, or at least in my experience, it truly does at least come with a certain level of satisfaction on the wrist compared to a cheaper strap. I did want to bring up one final thing though. This is my Casio Duro on a Barton rubber band, and I do think at $20, and maybe the strap wasn't even $20, at that price point, you can really get a nice rubber band. So different than leather, of course, a different experience, but this has been worn probably 100 times and it almost shows no signs of wear. I know that's kind of the advantage of rubber, but to my sort of point here, you don't have to spend a ton on a rubber band. And similarly, if you want to have some kind of an elastic loop band, you also are going to get, I think in my opinion, a really nice value for money experience. You don't have to spend a lot on a band like this. Different than leather, totally different experience, but it's important to remember that not every strap, not every type of wearing experience is going to be sort of dictated by a pure price point. Hopefully you found this video and comparison helpful in some way. Like I said, I know I'm feeling these in the flesh and it's kind of hard to describe how they feel compared to one another. But generally speaking, my takeaway for you all is that I find higher end luxury leather straps to be worth it. When I have a watch that's more meaningful to me or is considered to be a luxury watch, I like to get it on a nicer leather band. I want that luxury watch experience to translate to the band itself. Now, like I said, of course, if you want to try different styles or just experiment, going cheaper definitely is not a bad thing. It's never a bad thing to go cheaper, to be honest, but just know that it's going to come with probably some issues in the long run. And of course, like I said, if you want an elastic loop or a rubber band, those don't have to be super expensive either. So there's lots of styles out there, NATO's included. I should have said that earlier. Any of those types of straps can be purchased for $25 and under, and you can have a great experience with those. But let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about luxury watch straps. Do you think it's worth it? Have you spent hundreds of dollars on straps before, and what has been your experience? Let me know. I'd love to talk with you guys down below. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, I would really appreciate it if you can give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.